So Lev Parnas is the indicted henchman of Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. He has already said, I will testify under oath that Devin Nunes was flying to Europe and trying to push Ukrainian officials to find or to claim to have dirt on Biden. Lev Parnas has now reportedly delivered recordings of Trump and Giuliani to the House Intelligence Committee that's running the impeachment hearings. Depending on what is on those recordings, this may be the blockbuster so far of this entire story. These are audio and video recordings, as well as photographs, and these include Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani. We don't yet know what is on the recordings, but what is increasingly clear is that Lev Parnas is not the type of guy to mess with, especially after he has also implicated Devin Nunes personally in being part of the round-the-world trips seeking dirt on Joe Biden on taxpayer dollars, by the way, as we already discussed. Really, it seems that people like Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman are the types of people it's best not to associate with at all, because they might be helping Rudy Giuliani do his stuff for Donald Trump at first, but these are not dumb people. And they were collecting recordings, and at least as far as Lev Parnas goes, Igor Fruman has actually not cooperated at all. Lev Parnas seems ready to spill the beans and has already turned over audio-visual recordings involving Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani. I think it was James Comey that said, "Oh, Lordy, there are tapes." This is potentially huge. And this feels, again, like history repeating itself, going back to Nixon in the 1970s, where a whole bunch of stuff happened, a whole bunch of allegations and assertions were made. And then at some point into the scandal, it was learned there are recordings. And the recordings, of course, are very, very damaging in many of these cases. Now, I got an email yesterday over the weekend saying, David, don't you think that Russians have the Oval Office bugged at this point? Trump had that Russian spy recruiter, Sergei Kislyak, in the Oval Office. We have to believe Donald Trump is under surveillance by the Russians now, don't we? I don't know the answer. Nothing would surprise me at this point. But as far as these tapes go, if Trump is on the tapes, we can only assume it's not good for him. Because consider how self-incriminating Donald Trump is in public, right? Donald Trump doesn't even have the sense or the ability to avoid self-incrimination in public. Later, I'll get to his latest Fox News interview, which is a doozy, and he does a lot of self-incrimination. If you understand how useless and clueless Trump is when it comes to not self-incriminating, when he knows that he's in public, imagine what this guy says in private. And people who are behind the scenes, who were behind the scenes on his reality show, The Apprentice, have talked about this. And I'm not even talking about the likely use of racial slurs, which Trump is accused of behind the scenes at The Apprentice. More likely, the tapes could be of Trump in conversations which clearly indicate he knows people he has since claimed not to know. There could be tapes of Trump using language that makes it obvious that he specifically wanted a quid pro quo, bribery, extortion, whatever. The tapes could be anything, and I can't imagine that they are exculpatory in nature. So we will see what comes of these tapes. The House of Representatives Intelligence Committee reportedly just working through the tapes right now. My prediction is, number one, this is not going to be a particularly good week for Devin Nunes. And if anything, the Thanksgiving holiday will help them to take attention away from this absolutely disastrous news. And it's also important to remember, just as a general thing, when we are looking at this issue of tapes and recordings and everything else, Trump thinks that the things he says in private are exculpatory. So, for example, last week when Gordon Sondland testified on a phone call, Donald Trump said, "I don't want a quid pro quo." And then Donald Trump heard that and said, "Hey, that sounds great. That makes me sound innocent." And he came out and with the helicopter blades whirring, he said, "Here's what I told Sondland on the phone. I don't want a quid pro quo." And then any common sense thinker would say, wait a second, there's no quid pro quo. Why are you calling your ambassador and saying, I definitely don't want a quid pro quo? This is like the example I gave last week. I call my girlfriend and tell her, hey, pick up a few things at the grocery store and listen, don't shoplift. I don't want you shoplifting. I don't want you stealing the stuff. Unless there was reason to think that that would happen, you wouldn't even bring that up. And of course, we know that now the timing of Donald Trump saying this to Gordon Sondland was because he already knew that allegations of quid pro quo were growing. It doesn't help his case whatsoever. He doesn't even realize it. And after the break, we're actually going to get to video, which once again, this is just a gong show, bizarre interview on Fox News, where I believe Trump thinks he is making himself look innocent, and he has actually completely self-incriminated. That's coming up later. Make sure that you are signed up on the David Pakman Show newsletter. Black Friday, this Friday, we will have an email blast going out with an amazing membership discount. If you've been sort of thinking about becoming a David Pakman Show member and supporting independent media, this Friday will be a good day to do it. We'll have an email going out in the early afternoon with a coupon code. To be notified of that coupon code, simply get on our newsletter at davidpakman.com. Let me know what you think about the tapes on Twitter at dpakman. Today's program brought to you in part by Blinkist.com/Pakman. Blinkist is a great service that I use all the time. What they do is they take thousands of the most popular nonfiction books, including the newest bestsellers. They condense them into 15-minute audiobooks that you can listen to, and you still get the most crucial information and insights from each book. And I've listened to a ton of books on Blinkist. I recently checked out Soccernomics by Simon Cooper. We do have, after all, the World Cup going on recently. We also have been talking about BS Jobs, and there is a great new book, BS Jobs by David Graeber, which I listen to on Blinkist. They're constantly adding new books to the platform. You will never run out of fascinating and critically acclaimed books to enjoy. And our audience can get a 7-day free trial by going to Blinkist.com/Pakman. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm putting a link in the video description. And after the free trial, if you like it, you can continue enjoying thousands of condensed audiobooks for about $5 a month. That's BLINKIST.com/PAKMAN.